call you. Let me call him.
I just turned my phone off.
Mark, you can start the meeting.
It's funny.
All right, welcome to Improvement and Services Committee for October 25th, 2023. It is 5:45. I will ask for a roll call. Alder Stoyer, I'm here. Alder Weary.
Here.
Alder Eck.
Here.
Alder Campbell.
Present.
All present and accounted for. I need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Campbell.
Second.
Seconded by Weary. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, that passes unanimously. Approval of the minutes.
Making a motion to approve minutes.
Motion by Campbell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Eck. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, that passes unanimously. E, the presentation. Presentation of the citywide green stormwater infrastructure GSI plan. The speakers are Carrie Bristol Grohl of Aqualis Engineering Services and staff member Melissa Schmitz, resiliency coordinator. So we don't need to open the floor, do we?
No.
Good.
And also, we have Anna Peters from Robert E. Lee and Associates. She may also be speaking as
Anna,
well. So.
welcome aboard. All right. Well, I don't know if I was going to mention, and I'm not complaining for any of us, but this week we've got an employee wage study, a GSI plan,
Yeah.
a clean energy Green Bay plan, the city budget, and the city comp plan, which we're having a meeting right after this. So, was it a conspiracy? Not by you guys.
Well, you shouldn't have the clean energy plan yet.
Yeah, I know. That's just impending.
It's
So
on its
knock
way.
that one off. Okay.
Right.
All right. No, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's.
I don't know if there's ever a good time to, you know what I
Is
mean?
there
There's
ever
always,
a good
there's
time?
always a lot of things
Is there
happening.
ever a good time? Good. Good answer. All right. Well, the floor is
Okay.
yours.
All
So go for it and introduce
Sure.
yourselves again.
You're on the clock.
Okay, we're
Clock's
gonna,
ticking.
our
Tick
goal
tock.
is to deliver this presentation in approximately 15 minutes and then have time for questions. The handouts that you have are the main body narrative and executive summary of the report and the proposed GSI projects that are within the entire plan. So it's not all 300 pages that were included in your agenda packet. So just
We're here to give you the cliff notes, to your point.
I never use those, but thank you.
This is
Okay.
cliff notes, wow.
I know.
Yeah,
The
off the
15-minute
cliff.
version.
Mark knows.
So the background information for the Green Infrastructure Plan was back in February of 2022. There were some public works projects for some street improvement projects to include green stormwater infrastructure that were proposed using some of the ARPA funding. And those were denied at the time. And the directive from City Council was for staff to develop a comprehensive green stormwater infrastructure plan. So that's sort of what kicked everything off, and I'm very glad that that happened because we have a really strong plan, very comprehensive in nature. It's going to be a great tool, not just for city staff to use for planning, but also there's projects that are being proposed for development and within our right-of-way, so it's public and private. So that's the background to it. It's going to help us with our mission with flood resiliency, water quality improvements, and also just beautification in general of certain areas of the city. So there's multiple benefits to doing the green stormwater infrastructure. I think you can go to the next slide. Just the purpose of the plan, I already gave a little bit of a background to that, but within this plan, we've created processes and a framework for implementation. The plan also complements other city programs that we already have in place for green stormwater infrastructure. Some of those include the newly developed revolving loan fund that we have for residents to do green stormwater on their property. Secondly, the ARPA-funded East River Flood Mitigation Grant Program. It complements that. And the Stormwater Improvement Grant for commercial development projects. That's also an ARPA-funded program. And it also supports our TMDL plan, which was just approved last week. That's the stormwater for meeting our total maximum daily loads, our water quality requirements as a city. So it really supports programs and and requirements that we have as a city for water quality. Next slide, please. Planned deliverables. There were a lot of them, and this is why it was almost a year-long project. We've identified priority sub-basin locations within the city to do GSI. We've identified 30 public and 20 private GSI projects, and Carrie's going to go into a lot more detail on some of these as far as what that includes. We also asked the consultant to develop a tool that staff can use to really analyze all the benefits of a given project, and that's called the triple bottom line analysis. The economic benefit, the environmental, and the social benefit of doing projects. So instead of just looking at it from a first cost financial lens, we're taking a more holistic view of what we can gain from these projects. And then also, there's lots of maps. I did not print the maps, but there are a lot of good GIS maps that have been developed, and that was really the strength of having Ariel on the team, was our GIS tracking tool, and also as we go along, as we move along over the next 5-10 years, that we're tracking the projects, and we have, you know, for doing, whether it's inspections for on private property for these projects, we have a tool now for that. And then also an evaluation process for staff to use. So as we evaluate different street projects or projects in parks, to see, is green infrastructure appropriate and will it work in this particular location. And we have design guidance for our engineers, and then we also have an operation and maintenance guide for staff to use for maintaining the projects as we implement them. So Carrie's going to go into more detail. I might chime in a little bit, but otherwise I am going to take a seat now and let Carrie have the floor.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm Carrie Bristol-Grohl, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Equalis. We're a national stormwater company. This has only been about a 6-month relationship with Equalis. You actually hired Stormwater Solutions Engineering to do this project about a year ago, and that's the company that I founded and owned for 21 years. And we were recently acquired by Equalis, so that's why this name is what you're seeing on here. Prior to my 21 years as an owner of this civil engineering firm, Stormwater Solutions Engineering, I worked as a city engineering staff person in stormwater for the city of Milwaukee and the city of Brookfield for 12 years. So I like to have that background and experience in my mind when I'm doing projects for cities, to think about the residents and the taxpayers and the projects that you're doing and kind of all of that history. So we first started this project with a number of stakeholders, including some of the alders, the mayor, some nonprofits, and other staff, to look at what types of green stormwater infrastructure is acceptable by the city of Green Bay. And this page and the next page are the ones that were accepted. The only one that was really left off the list is a standard stormwater wet pond, which some communities want to consider GSI only because they already have a whole bunch, and then they can put them in the same bucket, basically. But so we left that one off. We are using these as what could be projects when we're looking at the projects down the road, but we had a stakeholder meeting to also get input on what are the reasons for why you would consider having green stormwater infrastructure. And the next slide shows us a little bit of that. We gave them, it's hard to read this, but it's kind of the idea is that it was a survey done of all those stakeholders on, and this is the rating that came out for second, third, fourth.
Is that in the, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is that particular piece in here? I can't read it up there. So
it is either in there or it's one of the appendices. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to find it in here. Okay.
That first part says flood-proof historic ponding areas. So if you have flooding areas already, this would be an area where you're considering green stormwater infrastructure to reduce flood risk. The next one was for high water quality, problem areas, and to reduce the cost of current stormwater infrastructure. So if you know you're going to be putting in a storm sewer or other stormwater infrastructure, this would be a way to offset those costs and still get some water quality and other benefits on it. And then we have, you know, a number of these other ones. But this helped us to get a view on how are we going to assess the city's drainage areas for where green stormwater infrastructure should be acceptable and needed and best utilized given all the other GIS kind of capabilities. So Then we really got REL involved in helping us with this Geographical Information Service, GIS, not to be confused with GSI. There's a lot of acronyms, right? And where we're looking here is at real hard data. So we're looking at what are the water quality results that have come out of modeling off of every single storm sewer. And that's kind of the brownish colored map that you see there. The city has already modeled with a model called WinSlam all of their storm sewer systems for your DNR permit. And out of each of those models, it tells us how many pounds of total suspended solids and phosphorus, these are the bad pollutants that we're looking for, how many pounds of those are coming out of each of these drainage basins every year. So Anna did some magic and mapped that out for us. And then we also took all of the instances of flooding that have been reported, and we put those into each of these drainage areas, and that's the blue colored map up in the upper right. And then we took the city's capital improvement program, your 5-year program of where you're planning to spend money on roadways and water mains and all that, and put that into a map. And we lay all these things together and say, if you're already spending money, you're already putting in a new roadway or a new sewer, and it's in an area where there's high flooding or bad water quality, that seems to be a pretty good sweet spot for where we should focus our interest in where projects could be located. And then we also look at things like where there is proposed development for new private development type of thing. And then any constraints we might find with soils, groundwater, bedrock, something that's too steep, like all the things that we know to be constraints to this type of design. The next part was then figuring out what type of GSI would be good in each of these locations. So our staff used our experience. We've been designing green stormwater infrastructure in Milwaukee mostly for the last 15 to 20 years. We've seen a lot of great learning through the years, but also a lot of good success that we've been able to build on. And so when the questions come up about how do you maintain it, or does this porous pavement really have a long life, we have a lot of answers because we have a lot of projects that have been in the ground, hundreds of projects that are in the ground. So we use all that experience with modeling and costs that's available, not only in the city of Milwaukee, but also up here in Green Bay from your recent projects, and pull that together into concept plans for each of these 30 public and 15 to 20 private locations. And the next page shows us a little more detail.
I was just going to say, so the 30 public, you're probably like, well, why did they choose 30 and 15 to 20 private? That's what we wrote in our request for proposal. So this was a very specific ask of anyone that wished to submit. We wanted to have tangible projects that we could plan for as a city. And then also on the private side, as redevelopment projects happen in certain areas of the city and people are looking for ways of, well, how can I meet my stormwater requirements? These are some really good conceptual plans that they can take and to sort of think outside the box, especially if you want to maximize your space of what they could use. And then another benefit of the detail of this with the phosphorus reduction, the stormwater, the volume captured is how much stormwater runoff will be captured in a given year by with this type of project. That also helps staff apply for grant funding because we have very specific information now where we can tell the funder, this is what we expect to gain from doing a project like this. So that's just kind of the background of how each of the project sheets are set up. They all have that information.
And so on the right, you see this something that looks like a page. That every single one of these project sheets looks like this. It has the same type of information of the location, the description, a cross-section of what the GSI type of device is, whether it's porous pavement, a bioswale, etc. And then what's kind of cut off is sort of a zoom in of that project, and that would be on the next page, please, Steve. So then you would zoom in, and here's our project area on Jefferson and Stewart, and then we zoom in a little further, and we're saying on each of these two corners of this intersection, these are low points that are near inlets. We can capture, so much water at each of these places. We'll design in a concept design, which means it fits, it's sized right, it can provide all that water quality. The staff will then go in, the city staff will then go into the next level of design when this project comes up to say, are there utilities here? Are there trees that we have that we can't move or that are not going to be working with this? You know, all the different constraints that we've laid out that you'll see in a few minutes. But so this layer of detail is available then for the staff on each one of these projects. You're already spending money there in that area, putting in roadway or sewers or that kind of thing. And then if you just click on this map, we should be taken to the online version. There it is, thinking, and Anna might help us with that. So this is also the creation of your own tool now. That's a map that shows all this information. And Anna was the mastermind, so you might have to minimize the PowerPoint and go to your web browser.
I did see a little pop-up that came up, and it might have been asking you for permission to open up that outside link.
You're asking us to tap on
That's
ours.
in the attached packet?
No, it's in the presentation. No. I think you have it on the little screen.
Presentation.
Right, so in your presentation that was attached, it was a PDF, so I don't know if that would be an active, if that will work.
Okay. Oh, because it's a live.
We could probably describe it without really going into it, right?
Sure.
Did you just click on the map?
Yeah.
I did that, it wasn't coming up.
So this is just kind of a screenshot of what you're seeing, what actually exists in the interactive map. But it's basically an online map if you guys ever use Brown County GIS or something similar. This is kind of the similar feel. You can zoom in, zoom out. And on the previous page, when you saw each of the sheets that were for the particular projects, what this map is it basically has all of that data housed into some points and project areas for each of the projects. So let's just say, for one example, in the previous slide, there was a worksheet that showed the red boundary. So you would essentially see that red boundary for that project in this map. And then within that map, there are multiple points for the actual GSI locations that are proposed locations. So some of them aren't the very specific locations, just because those are ones that Equalis has proposed. They aren't exactly the specific points, but inside those points, if you were to click on a point, you could see information for the project ID and the amount of the pounds of phosphorus for each point in each project area, as well as some other information in regards to the GSI. You can search for specific points. You can zoom in and interact with each of the projects. So unfortunately, that's probably as much as I can go into without actually seeing the map. But at some point, there should be a link available to you all so that you can view that map.
I think they brought it up in Sustainability Commission too, that you can turn the layers on and off.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need the tree cover and that.
Right, we also talked about making the map. So right now, the way it's designed, it's really for internal use, for staff people to use. But we could create a public-facing version of this, so that as we, identify and put in different areas of GSI throughout the city, that people can say, oh, we've got this over there. Another example would be, and we've already been doing this as staff, but we have a whole layer of where all the rain barrels, all the people that have gotten rain barrels through the city through the rain barrel program, we have all of that mapped. So we could integrate it. We can integrate this with our current systems.
And we can go on to the next page. If it moves for you now.
Is it frozen?
You might have to put your mouse up onto your monitor too.
I do like the fact that you can click on each of the points and it'll come up with a description of that point.
I think that worked. Okay, so next we worked into this triple bottom line analysis. So this is a really robust tool that we did not create, but it was done by the Water Research Foundation. This gets you 12 or 13 different calculators that you have to plug in all the information of each of the devices, how many gallons, how much phosphorus, solids, all these things, all the water quality and air quality and different components. And it provides you then with a view of what kind of benefit that's actually going to provide the city. And you'll find that for each dollar you put into GSI, you're getting $4 to $5 back out in jobs created, in property value improvements, energy reduction, water savings, and that type of thing. Next. After this, we develop a tool for the staff so that the staff's civil engineers can move into the design process, giving them a little layout of a rating system. You can kind of click through a couple of these since we're running a little late. This is the rating system to develop whether or not this is a high priority project area or not for them. Next we go to what type of, next page, what type of green stormwater infrastructure to be proposed on each type of pavement or rooftop or green space. Next is, and one other thing after that would be then the design steps for staff to take from the concept point that we've given them into preliminary, final design, construction, and maintenance. We also provided them with all the construction details and standard specifications you can see on the slide. And then an operation and maintenance guidance for every single one of the devices. So they have all the tools. They don't have to develop or make things up as they go. That's pretty much it. Our next step is to reach out to the staff level and do somewhat of a lunch and learn with them on that design process so they understand all the tools that they have. I understand there's some comments that have come back from staff, so we'll be able to address those. DPW leadership, did you want to speak on any of the stuff?
Oh, this was similar to what we said in the Sustainability Commission as far as like next steps is, to just have more internal discussions with you two and how we want to implement the GIS plan and a program, if you'd like to call it a program. We're also still, as staff, we're making comments, and we're going to keep getting those back to Aqualis over the next week or so on some of the components of the plan, not necessarily the projects, but just to, like on the standard specifications to make sure that, how is that going to work with our current process. And then as far as grant funding and next steps with that, there's a lot of different sources out there that I can keep pursuing to be able to do these projects. One is the Green Schools program, so that would be if we wanted to do a partnership with Green Bay Area Public Schools on some of the projects that are proposed on school grounds. There's DNR funding. There's the Fund for Lake Michigan, which has also been a funder to the city in the past. And there are a lot of different EPA grants as well. And then also exploring public-private partnerships going forward. And then we have our stormwater utility as well. So we do have ways of funding these, and that will be part of the implementation going forward.
Well, thank you. It's the second time I've seen it. Are we going to do this at council too?
No.
Good. All right. Well, I was going to ask you, Carrie. I didn't mean good like that. I mean, it's a great plan.
I thought he said, "Oh, good."
Good. Come on, bring it.
The thought was, we presented it sustainability. It's being presented here,
Sure.
so there's been two opportunities.
Right, I understand.
So we're, to do a third one, I don't know if that's really necessary.
It is a lot of material to try to force feed in a short time.
I just want to commend, Aqualis and also staff, Melissa, for the work you put into this. It was very, very comprehensive. Somewhat understandable. I'm not going to understand every nuance of it, but I think it's on the right spot, right step. I like the fact that we're looking at our CIP as well. I think that's very important that we're doing that. And I would like, after committee, do you have any comments right offhand? I got more, but I'll share. Anybody?
If I could add one little thing, what's really different about your plan, and I think you guys did this the right way, is that you're actually looking at ways to, is this going to work for us? And if so, where can we put it to work and not have to belabor this whole planning process to one day we'll finally get something done, is to say, where is it needed? Where could it be utilized? Where can it help you meet other guidelines or other requirements, like your DNR permit that has requirements for TMDLs that you hear all these acronyms? So that you can actually put things in action pretty quickly and not have to, make it another effort. And the cost, you'll find, the cost that's added to this when you're already opening up a roadway to put in new pavement, what have you, is really such an incrementally small amount. You're already going to do new concrete or asphalt there. So putting in porous pavement is only, maybe $7 a square foot more expensive than you would already. And there's a lot of studies on the longevity of porous pavement versus standard concrete and asphalt is having no need for crack sealing, no need for mill and overlay, no need for chip sealing or any of the other types of, depending on your concrete or asphalt, maintenance that you would have on standard roadway. But there's a different type of maintenance, and that would be vacuum sweeping it every 6 months or so. So there's a different type of maintenance, but the longevity in the pavement, they've been out for 15, 20, 25 years, depending on what part of the country you are, and they're really not seeing problems as long as the construction is done right and the base is built solidly. So I think in the long run, it saves the money for the residents, because the other DNR things would have to be like, oh, we have to put a special pond someplace now to manage water quality on top of, all of our normal infrastructure. So it's kind of a way to do both things at one place.
I was going to ask you, Carrie, you said you've worked in the Milwaukee area for quite some time. There must be other areas of the state or Midwest that you've worked with. How does this plan, of course you can brag it up if you'd like, how does this compare with some of the other plans you've done as far as the comprehensive nature of it and what you stated that, we have some action items listed, whereas maybe some plans in the past were a little more pie in the sky.
Right, that's the big differentiator, is that most of the other plans would just say, this is a good idea, and this is where you should think about it, and you should build partnerships and consider. It didn't say, here's where you can actually get started and get moving forward. What's really good about that is grantors really like that you have an actionable plan. So I think if you go to Fund for Lake Michigan or some of the EPA programs, we've gotten about $4.5 million in grants for our clients over the last 5 or 6 years for projects like this to help make things happen faster. So for instance, War Memorial Center in Milwaukee had a $500,000 to repave a parking lot. We got them $965,000 more in grant money to make it a really lovely, green parking lot that's protecting water quality right at the front door of Lake Michigan there. And so grantors love that kind of thing when you can bring that to them. So you have a plan that you can hand them and say, here it is. We've even had Sea Grant representatives on the committee or the stakeholder meeting to reinforce that this is going in that right direction.
Alder Campbell?
So there's 50 plans in here?
Yes, they're in the attachments.
I mean, I see all the numbers jumping out. How do you prioritize each of these? I guess I'm trying to understand it a little bit. And a little bit I'm catching here and there on priority-wise. Definitely new projects and new streets would probably take top of the grocery list.
Exactly, yeah.
Since you're doing it already, I just looked at a few that were in my district. And just trying to understand them and the costs and where the money's going to come from. And return on investment, how many years? I mean, it's all great and good, but I'll be dead by this book gets done,
So
I would think.
The first part is that we specifically looked at your CIP to make sure that we weren't calling out a project like on an alley that nobody's doing any work, or it's a great alley already, why do something there? So these are already project areas that you have planned. So the incremental difference in the cost is probably a lot easier to swallow than if you're going to start with a whole new project in a place where there's not any current project shown.
And then was this adjusted then with the new floodplain changes too? Was that implemented into this?
Well, so the flooding aspects, that's why we have the gallons shown on every single one of the sheets, is to show how this is going to impact offset flooding. It's more about climate resiliency, honestly, about changing in weather patterns that we're seeing every year, heavier and deeper rainfalls, that we're able to try to hold back some of that water. I know that there's another project going on right now about like the East River Flood Project.
I would think if they're cutting back the 100-year floodplain, 100 years seems like a long, long time, right? No one can really have a basis on it. Maybe that's why they make it 100 years, because no one lives 100 years. But at the same time, if they're peeling that back and lowering the restrictions on it, do we need all this? I get the resiliency part, but there's a reason they're changing the 100-year floodplain. So if we just tear this book in half, You get my point here?
I can't speak to the changes to the 100-year
This is-
aspect.
This GSI plan is more for stormwater management, not floodplain mitigation. So we have a permit with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources through their cooperation with the EPA that's called our MS4 permit. And under that MS4 permit, Melissa was talking earlier about the TMDL, the total maximum daily load of pollutants. And the two pollutants of concern are total suspended solids and total phosphorus. We're only allowed to discharge a certain amount of that into receiving water bodies on a daily occurrence. We're currently above that limit. So we have to continue to show demonstration to DNR and EPA of moving towards the goal of hitting those limits, rather than the floodplain, which is due to a natural event. These are everyday rainstorms that cause sediment to wind up in receiving water bodies. So the GSI plan helps us hit those goals as we're moving forward on our permit limitations. It's not necessarily connected to the floodplain.
I tend to disagree on that. I mean, saturation of the ground is one thing. It causes flooding. It causes barriers. It causes line movement. I think everyone can adjust to that in their own backyard if they have it. I do. And I'm in a floodplain, and I'd love to get out of it. I try to do the best I can to manage my water in my backyard, from ditches to get it away, to dry it out, so it doesn't kill the trees, cut the grass.
And
So,
you're
I
bringing
mean, all
up
that.
a great point that the city does have the revolving loan fund
Right.
also going on for the city's, residents to also be getting involved in doing something.
Well,
I know, I get it. That's good. I mean, I have a rare 2-acre property that it has to drain somewhere. And naturally to say, it doesn't drain to the street, Mr. Grenier.
So the triple bottom line calculation is what does give you that view on what the return on investment is.
Yeah.
And I think when you get into the nitty-gritty of every single project, you'll see that the return is actually very quick, depending on the neighborhood that you're in and the reason that you're installing the stuff. And that's the next step that staff can take to get into that a little bit deeper. But the cost incrementally is small, especially if grant dollars come in to cover the difference. Then you really don't see any, and actually, if they cover the full cost of the porous pavement, maybe say that's what's recommended there, then you don't actually have standard pavement that has to be installed, so it saves your project money in the end. Any other questions?
committee, anybody else? Other worry?
Did anyone from the public?
Yeah, I was
wanna
gonna
speak?
say, we can open the floor.
Minor later.
This up, I was gonna have all the worry that.
Minor later.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm good, thanks.
You're good?
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from anybody in the audience. Is there anybody that would like to speak?
Here, are we speaking about the presentation, or are we speaking about the action item?
Well,
Because the presentation is
I think-
in place and file, right?
That's true.
that's true.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Motion to receive and place and file.
Well, you don't have to do, there is no action associated with the presentation. It's just, it
Oh, I
was,
thought
It
we
was
just
it was
received
a
and place and file.
presentation, right?
No?
No, we are gonna be
Okay.
don't
talking.
need to even do that.
Thank you for coming.
There you go.
Yeah, that is a great presentation. I think you guys did a great job.
Very nice.
I'm just looking here on the agenda. Okay.
Even though it was 30 minutes long. Definitely
No,
at the
no.
15-minute part, I started to catch on a little bit more, so thank you.
We'll get to that with next item. So we'll talk.
No, I finally started.
So, okay, we wait, do we have a motion on that?
I think it was just.
Oh, I
There's
was
no-
just
there's no
receiving
action
and place
required.
and file,
It's
so.
simply an informational
Presentation.
presentation.
All right, thank you again. The second.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move forward to regular business. Number 1, consideration with possible action on a recommendation by Green Bay Sustainability Commission to adopt and implement the citywide green stormwater infrastructure GSI plan. So staff, first of all, I'd like to know if there's anybody from the public that would like to speak, and we'd make a motion to open the floor.
Motion open floor.
Moved by
Second.
Weary, seconded by Eck. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Floor is open.
Now you have to.
How do you just
Yeah.
stand up and
We're not-
walk up? I don't know.
Yes,
Yeah.
You think I would know this by now?
You should know.
Well, welcome. My name is Julia Nordyke. I'm a sustainability commissioner. And my address is 3221 Nicolay Drive in Green Bay. And I guess I'm really, I mean, there's a lot of great information here in the work, and I think I would say that I think the city's gone about it the right way. You have like the data to back up projects and actually do some of that prioritization. Flooding is a very complex issue for the city of Green Bay because you have the rivers, and then you have the bay and the coastal flooding, that's a potential issue, and then you have the storm sewers also that can have their own issues. And it's really flat here. So I really think what the city, if we take it as rather than it's just a new tool in the toolbox to help deal with flooding in the future, it's not going to solve all flooding, and in certain areas it's not going to be the right tool for solving flooding. But it's a new tool in the toolbox to help with flooding, help with water quality, and meeting the DNR permit, which definitely saves the city money. And can really I work with communities across Wisconsin along the Great Lakes, and a lot of people talk about how they're really just beautiful projects too. And so when you put a pipe in the ground, it's underneath, no one even knows what's happening down below, but green infrastructure is on the surface, and a lot of people really do enjoy the aesthetics and how it can like revitalize certain parts of the community too. So yeah, so I think that's basically what I would say. I think the plan's a great start to help you prioritize and really figure out what benefits work for the city and where to put it.
Committee, any questions? I was just going to ask you, Julia, have you had, in your experience, in other communities that have maybe utilized some of this in the past, or is it a fairly new technology, or have you had time to look at what other communities may have done in this type of vein?
There are many communities doing green stormwater infrastructure. Some of the ones I've worked with in the past, the city of Superior, which is really far north, has integrated into their toolbox, and basically they go, if it's a redevelopment or a street project or whatnot, it's just considered one of the options to look at that site. And that's what this plan does too. It really helps you figure out if it's applicable in the site, which it might not be. There are many communities in the Milwaukee area doing it, so like Oak Creek, their whole city hall is actually surrounded by beautiful permeable pavers, and Brookfield has been doing it, and so there's places all over Wisconsin that so it's not new technology, but it's evolving, and the best thing to do is figure out what technology works the best for the city. And I guess I would just say that most of the cities that I've talked to just recently, I've been talking to a lot of public works around the state, and there is a lot of grant funding to help support these projects. So you have the tools now to go after that money.
Great. Committee, anything else?
Where do most of the grants come from?
Oh, they're
Federal, state?
both federal, state, private foundation money. So for us, I mean, like there's a EPA initiative that's a bipartisan initiative called the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. It's bipartisan federal level.
Okay.
It's a federal bipartisan act that in 2010, and it's put in hundreds of millions of dollars into restore the Great Lakes, and like cities like ours, like, and think about Detroit or other urbanized areas that have really old stormwater infrastructure and really industrial, and so like helping revitalize these communities and get some of like the legacy contaminants.
So that's the biggest one?
So that's a really large one. So, but there's like, I mean, you could, because green infrastructure could also go in community development in grants. The state ones, the DNR has stormwater specific grants to go after. The Fund for Lake Michigan, which is a private foundation grant from Milwaukee, out of the Milwaukee area, because it was a settlement. They've been a big supporter. And then there's the Wisconsin Coastal Management, which is the Department of Administration and at the state level. So they're kind of all over the board. I mean, there's
that's why there's a lot of opportunities.
Is there any local ones as of yet? Local, probably private, I would think.
You could start one.
Other than each and every individual that makes an improvement.
Well, we have our city programs
Yeah.
through the two ARPA funded programs that I mentioned earlier.
So that's federal.
Well, yeah, and it's limited term, so, you know, it has to be all allocated by the end of 2024. But the revolving loan fund, which isn't a grant, but it's extremely low interest loan that a property owner could use to implement green stormwater infrastructure on their residential property. I mean, that's brand new. It's so new, we haven't even had anyone apply for it yet. That's my goal, is to get 2 projects done this year, or in 2024. And then we have a specific program for residents in the East River area to flood-proof their homes. So we have that program. That's an ARPA-funded program. So we have those local programs. But as far as like a local foundation, I mean, some of the private partnerships that I'm hoping we can nurture, develop over time as a city is with New Water. They would be considered a private entity, you know, in our eyes. So that would be, you know, one avenue to explore to do some of these, to get some of these projects implemented as well.
So there's you probably know better than me, is it the Greater Green Bay, there's a
Community
council,
Foundation?
Greater Green Bay Community Foundation, there's a council one too, isn't there? But some of these that do have, they go through themes of what they, fund every year, and sometimes it's like the environmental theme, or maybe it's education one year. So I think that's a great area to explore, is to see what foundations and things are local. There's a Fox Valley Community Foundation that has been very interested in this. That's out of Appleton in general, also, I do know that. And then I would also say a huge opportunity that is coming down very quickly for many communities is the bipartisan infrastructure law that is going to infuse a lot of money into these types of projects over the next few years, I would say. So I think this plan puts the city in a really good position to take advantage of those funds in general.
We'll be calling you a little bit for advice.
I'm happy to provide a letter of support for any grant. So.
Anybody else, committee?
No.
Anybody else from the audience?
No, I don't think.
Thanks, Julie.
Motion to go forward.
Motion by Worried, seconded by?
Second.
Second by Heck. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No, I wasn't going to do it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, committee, do you have any initial comments right now, or?
This is a lot to take.
Yeah.
And I guess to really, I like to do my research before I make decisions. And I guess looking at all of this, and I haven't had time to really delve into it. I would love a little more time to be able to read it before approving, implementing it. So just having more time is what I would like.
Is there a time?
I did note in the item report, the fiscal note, I don't know if you had a chance to look at my note on that, but by approving this plan, it doesn't hold the city to implementing every single project that you see in that plan. There was a way that I worded it so that it would be understandable to city council and to committee members, that projects will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Committing to this plan by saying we support this plan for adoption and implementation doesn't
Obligate.
It's a plan.
Thank you.
It's
That's
a
the
plan.
word. Thank you. It's a plan. It
It's a
is a
plan.
plan.
It's
And yes,
an
it is a very
implement.
specific plan, but I think that's its strength. Because you can go through a whole long planning process and still be like, okay, what do we want to work on specifically?
Mhm.
So,
So you're saying that it's, I understand what Alder is saying. There is a lot of information in this, but you're saying that the plan is a plan. Plans can change, you can alter it, you go case by case, there's different projects that
Right.
come up and you can look at it
so for
individually.
example, if the 5-year road reconstruction plan changes from what it was, 6 months ago when we use those projects to also overlay priority areas, well, that doesn't mean that, well, just because it's in the plan, that means that we have to do that project. Because maybe there's a different road project that's surface, I don't want to say that word because that's kind of like a pun, you know.
Is it?
But you know what I'm saying. If the city plans change, then this plan is flexible enough and we have enough of our staff tools within this plan. The evaluation tool, which is an interactive spreadsheet. We have the triple bottom line calculator tool, which is also an internal tool. And we have the operation and maintenance. There's a lot of internal, really good internal tools that we're going to be able to use as a department, and not just Public Works, but our Parks Department as well. So I don't want the words adopt and implement to frighten people. Which is why I worded, you know, that fiscal note is worded the way it is.
Yeah, and I see that.
Okay.
Is it okay if I respond? I do see that in there. But it does say with possible action on recommendation by the Green Bay Sustainability Commission to adopt and implement. I'm definitely not saying that I'm not wanting to approve it. I would just like it to come back to our committee, our next
Council.
Well, our next committee meeting, not the council,
Okay.
to have more time to look at it.
Okay.
That's my feeling.
Alder Campbell, do you have something?
I'm kind of on board with the same idea, although I'm leaning, I think, like I said, as I just stated before, I don't think us four here can really throw this all out here. I hate to say it, but I think it needs to be put before the whole council in the presentation, to be honest. I mean, it was really good, and boy, I'll probably really get it by then. But I don't see how we can, if everyone looks at us and go, well, you guys do the work. I mean,
Well,
I agree we do, and I think we need a lot more support on it because it's huge. I'm beginning to understand it, and if it's grant money and such, understanding how it's going to be implemented with the here nor there is I guess good. You know what I mean? It's like changing a recipe if you can make better, whatever. I don't know. You know.
Okay.
I just think it needs to be presented as much as a great presentation it was. It was a shame just to waste it on 4 people, and 12 would be great. Because I think ultimately it's going to come down to
Let's
that.
go to the council anyway.
They did
I
do
mean,
that, the Sustainability Commission.
Well, I know, and everyone needs to look at that. It's like, maybe they need to look at it. Who didn't look at it, you know? I didn't, till now,
Say
so
something for
that's all
Okay.
I have for input on that, but
that. Alder Word, you got
Thanks.
something?
Thanks,
for
Mr.
the
Chair. Yeah,
conversation, I guess.
piggybacking on Alder Campbell, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea maybe to present it to council. It's a pretty big project. There are 2 weeks between now and council, so I'm initially was thinking about maybe we should hold it, but I think there's enough time there that people could read it, and if there's a lot of concerns and questions, we'll be ready at council. Now that's committee work, so we can kick it back, but I'm all over the place here with my thoughts here, but I know it's a guide, not a requirement, right? That's what you were trying to get at.
Well, I think what Melissa was getting at, the plan is more than the list of projects. Okay, so don't laser focus on the list of 50 or so projects that have been identified. There's also the tools that she's talking about, and those tools can be used as a guide by staff to evaluate other projects as they arise. Now, in addition to providing with those tools, as Carrie was talking about, that's what most of her other plans have done. They've given the staff the tools to do those evaluations and identify what projects could pop up in the future. In addition to that, they've also selected 30 projects that are municipal and 15 to 20 that could be private partnership opportunities for us to look at as they already tie into projects that are identified in our 5-year capital program. Even by implementing gives us the ability to utilize the tool for future projects or look for other projects that aren't necessarily identified in the plan. And it gives us the ability to include an evaluation of GSI technology in those projects that are in our 5-year CIP. That's automatically going to come back in front of the Finance Committee and or this committee and the full Common Council when we ask for those projects to be included in the 5-year CIP, in the annual CIP, and when we develop the funding mechanisms for that annual CIP, whether that be levy supported, and GSI typically is not levy supported. More often than not, because it's a stormwater function, if there's borrowing associated with it, it comes from the stormwater utility, or it comes out of the operating funds of the stormwater utility. Again, we have been talking about, and the one GSI project we did last year was Eliza. That was that?
Eliza Street.
Eliza. Okay.
Yeah, the pavers, I remember.
And yep, and that was a grant funded. What approving this plan, when we go to seek grant funding, okay, and you've heard this from Melissa, you heard Carrie, you heard from Julia. What the grants, the administrators of the grant, or the foundations, or whoever that organization is who has the grant money, a lot of times what they want to see is, do you have a plan? And what's the projects that you've identified? What is the benefit of the project? That's what the project sheets do. But approving the plan doesn't commit us to building any of them. We still have to come and seek council approval on any individual project because it's an expenditure of capital funding.
Is there a timeline on? Sorry.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Alderette.
I mean, is there like a timeline on having this approved? Is there?
Yes, it's time sensitive.
Is there time sensitive?
I don't know that there's a drop dead date. Having the plan to work from, especially during the winter while we're in design, helps our staff. If we don't have an approved plan, if we don't have something that the council has signed off on and given us the authority to work with, we can't begin evaluating this for projects that could potentially be built next year.
Alderwood.
Thanks. Just so that it's clear for myself and committee and the public, the private projects or any future private projects would be looked at as a partnership. We're not putting something in place that requires them to do it over and above.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
What we've taken the opportunity to do is look at areas where we think improvements could be. Then we have that tool to go and explain that case to that private property owner and say, this is what we think could happen and what the benefits for stormwater management can be. Now, with some of the programs that Melissa was talking about with the ARPA funding that's already in place, then we can direct them, well, okay, you're asking me to make an investment on private property. What's in it for me? Well, what's in it for you is you're meeting stormwater management goals and you're alleviating some potential problems that you're seeing on your property. Well, that's great, but where does the money come from? Well, the city just happens to have this funding mechanism to help you out with that.
Okay, well, perfect. I can start with that. And I know talking about the permeable pavement, we had a bigger project, right, that we turned down, and I was one who turned it down because it was almost $1 million more, and we didn't have a plan. Well, now we have a plan, so I was one who asked for that. So now that it's here, I'm inclined towards moving it forward because it is a plan, it's a guide, and it really has some creative things in there that we were looking for. So,
and to piggyback on what Alder Wery said, I've been looking at this for a while through Sustainability Commission, but also on INS. And again, I think the worry is like, well, you know, we're implementing this plan which would cause this type of expenditure and this and that and the other thing. I think it's been brought up pretty well that this is a plan. It's a plan that we need to have in place for us to move forward. When I worked in the planning office for 25 years, we had hundreds of plans that we developed. Some were done well, some maybe not as much. But I like the amount of time and effort that went into this plan. I think it was done very well. There's no hidden agendas here. It's just basically coming forward and saying, you know, we really need to have something in place that we can build off of. So for that purpose, I am inclined to move forward with this as well.
And Anna brought you a map, even if I couldn't get it to work.
I love maps.
right, that's his
Lots of
his
maps.
weakness.
I know I keep repeating that, but.
No, I want to interrupt your, absolutely.
No, I think I'm
doing good.
I'm off my soapbox. I think it's a very good plan. I think it's And like Carrie mentioned, that there's other communities that have done plans like this where they may not have put in action items. Here we've got potential action items. It's not saying you have to do this or you have to do that. I think it's one of the best plans that I have seen personally in my 12 years in council. So I commend you for that. I'm off my soapbox.
Thank you.
Alder work hard, Alder Campbell.
I'm not gonna piggyback off you, because I know you're old and you can't handle the weight, but
Oh, really?
I'm just
You're
gonna
gonna be
bring
surprised.
a couple comments up, but you do have a very strong mind, all right? And you've had a lot of years of experience in that, all right? And Melinda and I, Alder Eck, are a little less, so we're a little lenient on it. Now, you've also said that you've had several weeks to look at it, all right? Just exactly, again, like I said, I still think we need everyone to take at least a look at it in detail like we have. And I think you're gonna have good approval on it, but to just,
It is attached, so they should.
I know, but,
Well, this,
and everyone should look at it.
We're
I
at the
know.
committee level. And
I know.
we're just part of the process.
But
That's it.
I'm complimenting you on how you understand it. You have worked there, and we're new.
There's,
For a first-time presentation, I think it's a great presentation. I think everything is right here to move forward with it, but great work, you know what I mean? Because what page, it's late. You probably have this memorized, what every project is almost.
no, it's, no.
I don't have everything memorized. There's a lot of information in there.
I would think that sooner or later, you're almost gonna know that's in the back, that's in the front.
I will
Because,
say.
because you put that much work into it. you
And
know?
one thing I do want to mention, at the very beginning of the project, we had a big kickoff meeting, and we did invite a handful of alders to the kickoff meeting. We couldn't invite everyone, because then it's a quorum, and then, and all of that. But Alder Hutchinson was at the kickoff meeting. I think you were also at the kickoff meeting. I'm not sure if Alder Galvin attended or not, but we did have other, this is on the radar.
Yeah.
Okay, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm totally, I just want everybody to be part of it, because I think it unanimously could be voted on. And
So
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I want to lean to the favor of it all. You talked me into it, you almost have, but I mean, I just really think with
Yeah.
respect of everybody,
Right.
I don't think you're gonna have a problem with it. I just like to get everybody on board. I know we're gonna all vote on it. If everybody put the time in and we keep really good notes like Alder Scannell does.
Scannell or Story?
Scannell. No, he keeps no notes. I'm just saying, sometimes just listening is how people make decisions. And I think this one really, with the hard work you guys put into it, deserves a paging through. And I mean, even if it takes looking at your own projects in your own neighborhood, you're already a little more familiar with what exists. I don't know what goes on your side. I have to take a look at it for you guys. But in all that is what I'm saying, is just more in everybody on it, I think, it will just take off and ever land.
Okay. Anybody else? Alder Eck or
I'm just gonna go to
Alder
council,
Weary?
but I just
Alder
like
Weary?
to see
Sure.
it further.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, as stated,
Yeah.
you done over there?
Committee?
No,
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Go
You
ahead.
asked me a question.
I'm kidding. The plan allows us to tap into more federal and state things so that grants, so that the projects themselves are cheaper, right? Because that has to be, in the end, our top focus is expense. I mean, if we're going to forego doing 2 streets so we can get one, and I call them special streets, I'm going to call them special street again. You have to be able to tell your residents why you're not doing Marquette Avenue
Right.
and Oneida,
Same
but you're
neighbors.
just going to do one other street, and that you really have to be able to explain that, because they just know their street's horrible. So that just moving forward, and all these projects, like you said, are going to come back. Right, they're all going to come back, and we can weigh cost benefit as you already factored in a lot of that. So we have 2 weeks between now and council. I think if a majority of council, when we get there, says, you know what, I'm still uncertain, whatever it is, we could always send it back, but I'm make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Weary to approve. Do we have a second? I'll second for Discussion? Any other discussion? Otherwise, we'll take a vote.
Well, I wanted to ask another question.
You may.
I'm getting for it. So is there's like a pager thing on this? Like, I'm sure you got your favorite projects in here, if not all of them, but you gotta have some kind of order to it, right?
It's too early.
I mean, I agree, have it ready to go, and it's like, here's, we've got a bunch of grant, let's go, you know, I mean, here it is, page whatever, and let's get going on it.
We have not prioritized any of the projects in there yet. It would be premature for us to do that until we have a plan that's adopted.
Like I said, it's a plan.
I'll second it. The motion.
Okay, second it. Campbell? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Letting it go.
So, 3-1?
No, she got.
I said letting it go, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I think some of the questions that came up, I don't think they were.
Was that a 3-1
It's
or?
4-0.
4-0.
4-0.
Okay, I couldn't hear.
Yeah. Well, I should say all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, with that being said,
Do it again.
we know.
That's 7.
3 what?
You already said it.
3-0.
I have to put up with this anyway. No, I think that there was some talk about having the rest of the council getting up to speed, and I realize this has been a project that's been going on for over about a year now. So there is a lot there. So I understand where the committee is saying that it would be nice to have the rest of the council up to speed on this. And I don't know if a presentation, I mean, it's what, 15 minutes, right? It's not that long. And Alder Campbell, you said you liked
Yeah,
it.
I think it needs
I
to
thought
be.
it was succinct.
There's a lot there, it was well represented.
But is that something?
Took a year to do it, it only takes 15 minutes to approve it. It's not hard to ask.
Right, okay.
Well, we can encourage them to watch the video.
Yeah, that's what I was
We
gonna
could
say.
do that.
Have them reach out,
That's-
them reach out and go
Why don't-
really look at it.
That's what I would
Motion.
suggest, is that if you have some strong opinions relative to the other council members,
Yes.
seeing the presentation, that you reach out to them and ask them to watch the video from tonight's meeting.
Can that be?
They're going to get the same presentation, and it's not going to require Carrie to drive back up here from Milwaukee.
You don't have to drive back, you can just stay.
Just
It's 2 weeks.
Well, you can
I
use
got
our,
plenty of
you can
things
use
to
our
do.
name and you
Work
guys
for
So
you.
the other,
You guys do the campaign.
we are actually, there's a flood and stormwater conference being held next week, November 1st and 2nd at the KI Center. It's being hosted in Green Bay. Carrie and I are doing this exact same presentation, except even longer, expanded version at this conference. And if any of your friends on council want to come and see the presentation, you're more than welcome. I can try to
Would
get
you,
you tickets for that presentation.
Is that something you could put out to the council? That you would send out an email? Is that something that would be?
I could, but they're not, well, I don't think they can come to the whole conference, but I could give
Yeah,
them
'cause there's a
direction to like
cost.
when the presentation is. The other thing is we will put this,
Do you know what time it is?
I have the agenda.
Yeah,
I can look it up.
Well, the reason
It's like-
I ask is because November 2nd is also the Joint Personal Finance Committee.
Yes.
Is it
Yes.
during the
I forgot
Yeah.
how much joy that is.
so the other thing is,
That's
we can, instead of having this embedded just in your agenda packets, we'll find a way of posting the presentation, not the recorded presentation, because that, everyone can access that, but the PowerPoint.
The
on our-
PowerPoint will be in the council packet.
Right.
Right.
But I mean, would it be easier to put it on our website? Do a link, like, right, that might be easier.
We're just trying to figure out the best way to get it out. Like the motion could have been, please watch the video, but that's almost insulting too, that like, I should be able to do it anyway.
It's not Friday.
So what would your suggestion be, to get it out to the rest of council? Just read your packet, I don't know. I mean, everybody does it a little differently. They look at their packets differently, and some will be more intent on it than others.
Well, again, both the presentation,
There's a lot.
the PowerPoint presentation, and the actual plan will be in the council packet as supporting documentation for the various items under the committee report. And then if they'd actually like to see the presentation, or if you feel that the presentation that Carrie Ann and Melissa did tonight is critical for them to understand what's going on, I would simply ask them to watch that particular portion of the INS agenda, or the INS meeting.
Right, or sustainability, yes. Sustainability reporting.
Probably would be better for us to
Much
reach out to
shorter
the
on
fellow
sustainability.
council,
I'm gonna watch that, right?
other
That
than
would be a
if
quicker
they
view.
do it at once, because
Yeah, how,
we didn't do
well,
the
I
work.
want
This presentation at this conference is at about 10:30 on the 2nd.
Okay.
10:30 morning, for about a half hour. So we can get a little bit deeper dive.
I think JPF starts at 3:30.
3. That was 3.
Great.
I just want to say one thing too, because, you know, we've had extended, good, somewhat, presentations at council where they wanted to just wing it right through too, and we're like, whoa, 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 we're not, this is a presentation, we gotta send this back to committee. So I mean, I see now the reverse of it going the other way, and like,
We're trying to
I don't
build the
like that way, I like this
education
way better,
to
you
the
know,
council
let's make it work.
versus the other way around.
Yeah, I'm on board with that totally. Yeah, I mean, going back the other way, we're like, it's like you're trying to slide it through and get it passed all at one time, you know, and nobody, that's even the quicker method, you know? And it's happened, and we pretty much send it back, so, and that's the right thing to do, and this time, I'm approving it to move forward because of that.
Well, yeah, we'll figure out a way to reach out to the council. I think that's, we'll figure that out on our end. But thanks again. Okay?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you all for testifying.
I will piggyback on Mark's, that was one of the best presentations I heard.
I'm gonna quote that on
Yeah.
my business card or something.
Go for it.
Well,
I want to see some smileys on my page.
all right.
Thank you.
We'll see what we can
Thank
do.
you.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
again. All right, number 2, consideration with possible action on draft letter and resolution prepared by Department of Public Works seeking WisDOT reconsideration regarding need for sidewalks on Country Club Road reconstruction held over from August 16, 2023. Improvement and Services Meeting, Director.
Yeah.
Can I
Okay,
just make
so
a
the
motion?
direction that I heard the committee and the council concur with was for us to prepare both a letter and a resolution on behalf of the representing the common council, asking WisDOT for reconsideration of their decision on requiring sidewalks on Country Club. So I've taken the opportunity to draft the resolution and the letter, and rather than just do that and send it out, I wanted to make sure that I was meeting the expectations of the committee, so I brought it back to get some feedback from you.
All right, Alder Beck, did you want?
Well, I read through it. The only thing, I mean, it's great. Do you think that if we give the 3 choices, they might go with the, you know, I know.
Are you asking for my honest opinion?
Yeah.
My honest opinion is they're going to say, thanks for contacting us, we understand your concerns, however, this is federal legislation, you have no choice. That's my honest
But at
opinion.
least we tried.
Yeah, yeah. And
Right.
by the way,
At least we tried.
I did ask Roger to come. He turned it down as our guest speaker. And he
yeah.
just was like.
He's retired, I
He
can't
doesn't
blame
wanna-
him one bit.
What doesn't do it?
Yeah.
Well,
So it looks, I think it's what we asked for.
yes.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Okay, motion by Eck, seconded by,
Second.
seconded by,
Oh,
seconded by Weary. All in favor, please say
Aye.
aye. Aye. All opposed, that passes unanimously.
Thanks, Steve, looks great.
And thanks for putting that together.
that was,
Yes.
yes.
What's
That's
that?
it?
What happened?
Oh,
Do we need
he-
authorization to have you submit it to anybody?
It said
Yeah.
November 2nd, so is that on our day of our joint finance committee? Or,
What-
yeah. That was the date on it, was to November 2nd.
November 2nd. Yeah, was there a
Yeah,
date-
that should
a
actually
date?
be November 7, or it should be November 7, November
Okay.
2 is the, I got 2, 7, and 9 just going around.
Yeah,
in my
I
head.
wondered, that's what I was wondering, because I figured
Okay.
it should be our next, our
That's a-
council.
Right,
meeting.
so I'll
Good point.
revise the date to November 7, and I'll revise the date on the letter accordingly.
Do we need to
November
vote on
7.
that? That's just a Scrivener error.
And then Jim just reminded me, in addition to approving the letter and resolution, we'd also be seeking authorization to submit list on. So I'm assuming that was part of Alder X's original motion.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Interject.
What you said, what you
What-
said.
Wow, there's a lot of trust
All right.
there.
Okay, so can we move ahead? Informational, director's report
that's
on
what I
recent
did.
activities on the public works department.
Just one thing that I wanted to make you aware of. We did say at our last meeting that we were looking favorably on construction for this year. With the weather turning in the past week, the additional water that's come down is starting to cause one of our contractors some concern. The Burner Street project is still tracking pretty well. However, we've got an entire subdivision in District 12. So the Indian Hill subdivision. We've been doing the utility work over there, but now we're at a point where we need to mill the asphaltic pavement off.
We're getting going pretty quick here. I was just doing a time check.
We're almost
We're
done.
almost done.
Okay.
We're coming in.
Steve's been talking for half an hour, we can't get him to stop.
I've been trying to get her. No, okay.
We now have to mill the asphalt off and repay and put the new asphalt down. And the contractor's expressing some concerns with freezing weather in the forecast over the next 3 weeks, that subgrade may freeze and we may not be able to get the pavement down. We're continuing to work with the contractor. We're telling them, push on and get us a plan. You committed to being done by the end of the year. But just in case the unfortunate happens, we may wind up having to patch that road up a little bit, limp ourselves through the winter and pick it back up in the spring, even though we don't want to do that. So I just want to make sure that we're making people aware of that. I will reach out and have that conversation with Alder Burnett if something goes sideways on it, we have to do something different.
So where's Burner at?
It's in the Indian
It's
Trail,
I
Indian
know,
Hill
but the
subdivision.
Burner one then is gonna go?
It's
Yeah.
No,
It's on
Burner still
track.
looks like it's okay.
All right. It's a mess.
It's that resurfacing over there on the far
They
west
still
side.
gotta do sidewalks and all that there?
We don't do sidewalks on reconstruction projects.
We need to make a motion to receive it.
Only on new roads,
Ripped
right?
up pretty good.
No.
right to the
Not even on new roads.
side.
No, sidewalks are actually at the,
Huh?
by order of the common council.
That's just something I
Okay.
said.
Have you gone down there?
Are we
I
done?
know you don't, but
Can-
they there's a lot of dug stuff. Like every single driveway had to be filled in just so people could get in them.
Where is this?
Burner. I just rode down it the other day. Whatever.
Can I make a motion to receive and place on file the
Yep.
director's
Yes.
report?
By
Second.
Beck, seconded by Campbell. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, let's adjourn and then we can
Just real quick, thanks for helping with all the TDS stuff that's finally hitting my neighborhood. And I know I send you lots of emails and people are confused about what it is and it's a utility, and sometimes TDS is oblivious to where they are and what they're doing, and
That's
I'm sure you've dealt
It's
with lots.
lightened up, actually.
Not my area.
Oh,
Looking at mine.
all the weary just like get on the front end of it.
Well, I had it before. All right, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Our next meeting is November 29th.
Oh,
Motion to
sorry.
adjourn. By,
Sorry, I know they're waiting for us, so I kind of
yes,
feel.
motion by Beck, seconded by Campbell to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Next meeting, November
Aye.
29th.
All in
This all
favor,
goes to
say
City
aye.
Council, November 7th. Thank you all.
Push it along.
It may not be.
Wants to run to another meeting, right?
No.